Aloha! What's happening, everybody? Hello, Secret. Stop! Hello, Secret Beachcombers. How the heck are you? Greetings for March's Typhoon. It is Typhoon Andrew. How the heck are you, Andrew?
Doing good. Nice, lovely, warm day in Austin, Texas.
Nice shirt there, brother. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you. This is actually going to have to get retired soon because it's getting threadbare in many spots.
Bummer. That's a good shirt. I like that blue.
Yeah, it is a good shirt.
All right, so today we are talking, or Andrew's talking about the bins, and he does have a full presentation, but I wanted to share a couple quick stories, especially for those of you who have not been in the bins, and Andrew's going to get into it. There are rules on the wall, and there are rules you need to know just that are unwritten, but if you want to keep all your digits, yeah, you want to pay attention to those. So when we filmed Thrift Hunters, we filmed at these bins. Now, these bins are an accidental filming location. We are at a Goodwill in Boston, and this bins was right next door, but it went the Goodwill we were in, a big office space for the Goodwill staff to, where they help people get jobs and stuff like that. And as we were done filming and we were going off to another location, the manager said, "Hey, we got bins next door, right?" And we were all like, "What?" So we waltzed over, we stuck our head in, and we said to the manager, like, "You cool if we film there?" And he's like, "Sure." So these bins are amazing. Look at all the shoes in these bins. It was more than any bins I've ever been in. And the space isn't really big. And there's more stuff in this smaller space than a lot of the big ones I go to. But the problem with these shoes were none of them were together. It was just a mess. And so for a second when we weren't filming, I reached in, I pulled out a really good snowboard boot, and I looked at my director. So if you see this picture, I was standing at this front yellow tub. He was way back at the last blue tub, and I held up this boot and said, "Hey man, why don't you make yourself useful and find me the match to this boot?" Just being a total smartass. He looks down, reaches down, and pulls it up. And I'm like, "Oh, can you do that every time? This would be awesome." Like, if I just pull
That's a rarity. That is a rarity.
And it was within a second that he saw it. So here is another shot of the bins behind me. The bins are, they feel chaotic and chaos. And Stacy actually just joined us. She's been to the bins one time and one time only because, the look on her face was, "I'm not coming back." So we filmed at these bins, obviously. And then about here's one more shot. And just as you can see, the multitude of stuff behind us. So cut to 4 years later, I'm back in Boston and I'm hanging out of these bins. And as you can see, they're just as full as ever. So I snapped this picture, and Andrew might address this, but one of the rules is no pictures.
No photography.
And the second I snapped it, this employee came out of nowhere. She was like Batman, like a ninja. I don't even know where she came from. And she yelled at me, and she yelled at the employee standing next to me. She said to me and to him, kind of together, "You know the rules. There is no taking pictures." And before I had a chance to say anything, the employee said, "But this is Jason from Thrift Hunters. He's the one that filmed here a couple years ago." And she said, "Oh." And so this is the woman who was just yelling at me, now taking my picture in the bins. So I said, "Wait a minute. You just yelled at me for taking a picture." She goes, "Well, that's before I knew you were famous." So apparently there's an asterisk to the rule of no pictures. If there's someone famous in the picture, feel free to take a shot. And then one last thing I want to share. Not all by the pound stores are bins or are connected. Excuse me. Or are connected to a thrift store. A majority of the bins are like Salvation Army, Goodwill, and there's a Savers one here. This is another store we filmed at in Boston called the Garment District. And what they do, and I don't know where they get them. I probably did a few years ago. We filmed there. They get a fresh bale of clothes every day, and they cut it open in the morning, and people dig through it, and then they sell it by the pound, and then the next day they'll get a fresh bale of clothes and do it all over again. So this ground here never gets uncovered, so to speak, because there's always fresh stuff falling down. So this was a shot from 4 years ago, and then I was there this winter, so here I am heading in. That was the leftover from the day before. I was the first customer in, and there's the fresh bale had just been cut. and I was the one that was able to go through the whole thing. The only bummer was that's when my back was really screwed up. So other than the bale, I couldn't look at anything else. I could not bend over. I couldn't get down there. So there are other by the pound stores that are not bins and not thrift stores. So just, look around. You might walk past a store called the Garment District and never think it's pretty much a thrift store. You might not know that. So keep your eyes peeled, look around, and you never know when you're going to run into the bins. Speaking of the bins, let's get right to Andrew's presentation. Oops. All right, this opening picture just made my day when Andrew sent me this over. I'm like, yes. All right. Hold, please. There we go. Hey. And Andrew, the floor is yours.
Okay. Basically, we're talking about Goodwill bins for the most part. But like Jason said, there are other thrift stores that have them. Apparently, Sabre has them in some places. Down in San Antonio, there's a couple of other places that some chains that have bins there or outlet stores there. And then you'll get just some random things like the Garment District, something like that, where you just randomly come across it. And sometimes it's like a pop-up sale. Sometimes it is a regular operation. But for the most part, when people are talking about the bins, they are talking about the Goodwill bins. And so should you go? Yes, you should. Like I said, boom, give them a try. If you're in Austin, this graphic is really funny to you right now, but most other people are not going to find it as funny as I do. As it says, it's a great way to get things drastically cheaper. You're paying by the pound. You're not paying by the brand name or whatever bizarre formula some guy in the back of a Goodwill comes up with as far as pricing it, where it's like, hey, here's this like $200 value thing that's for $5, but this, run-of-the-mill $10 thing is $20, and you just never know. Bins, for the most part, everything is going to be by the pound with some exceptions.
Oh, wrong button. There we go.
Nope. The first thing you got to do, know your bins. Everybody's bins are different. The setup will be different. As most of you know, there's no one Goodwill anywhere in a different area that's the same as a Goodwill in another area. They're run by different operations. They are run differently, and therefore when they have bins, they're done differently. We have 2 bins here in Austin. I've also been to the bins in Waco, Killeen, Temple, San Antonio, and Salem, Oregon, of course. So you need to know the basics. When are they open? Ours here are open. The one is open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Wow. The other is open 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. And you can go. We went today, Wednesday at noon, jammed. You had to wait for a cart. Like Jason said, know the rules. There are written rules. There should be something on the wall that has the rules. One of those big rules is going to be no photography. But as you're going to see, there's going to be some pictures that people take. You can go on the internet and look up Goodwill bins, and there will be pictures. There's unwritten rules. Like Jason was talking about the shoes. At our bins, there's an unwritten rule. If you find a shoe and somebody else finds the matching set, you meet up, you flip a coin, and the winner gets the shoes. That's it. That's it.
Is there video of that?
If you walk around, you walk around long enough in the bins here, you will see some people flipping a coin, and they're deciding who gets that pair of shoes. And it's a standard, just thrift store stuff. Don't mess with other people's carts. Don't cause a ruckus. Be nice to the other people, and especially be nice to the employees, because it pays off in the long run. Then you need to know the pricing. Should be a big sign somewhere. Explains the pricing. It's going to be different, again, from place to place. Some places, everything's by the pound. Some places, some categories are £1 price. Another category is another pound price, and then you have various things. Next slide will show you the rules that are posted for ours.
Look what's number one.
No grabbing. Now here, I think that most people don't take merchandise in the restrooms, and I can't say whether gifts or whatever given to the cashiers. But I can tell you there's definitely photography. There's definitely running. and there's definitely grabbing of merchandise by the tote or handful, and people will just grab an armload and go and dump it back in their cart. Check out when baskets are full. That one's completely broken, but you know, on a day when they're short of carts, they may come around and enforce that. Do not leave children unattended. My recommendation, don't take your kids to Goodwill bins. Just don't do it. But some people will, and keep an eye out for the fact that because a lot of people do leave their kids unattended. And then the pricing. In our hard goods, soft goods are by the pound. Glass is $20 for $2. Books are $5 for $1.99, and large items, which is basically furniture, chairs, washer dryers. The 42 treadmills they get a week are generally marked with a price. It's usually something like $4. They can't give away treadmills at that place. Next slide.
You know, before we go on the next slide, you know, rules for anything, the bins, the pool at your hotel. There's never a rule written and put up for you to read until it happens multiple times. So it's making me wonder how many gifts of food have been given to the cashiers at this bins.
This one, not so much. The old, the north bins are generally where I go to. They've only been in operation about 1.5 years. The south bins have been over 5 years that I've been going there. And I'm pretty sure that there were some cashiers probably getting gifts at some point. So don't do it. Don't do it. Because then the thing is, anytime you do that, you run the risk of like getting banned from the bins. And even though that might be a cool story to tell your reseller friends, you're cutting off a source of good inventory at a cheap price. So, okay, price breakpoints. Anytime you have tiered pricing, you're going to have breakpoints, and the breakpoint is basically the point at which it pays to just load your cart up with a bunch more stuff to get yourself to the next pound level. Figure out where they're at, and so that way you know, hey, as soon as they hit 42 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever it winds up being in your particular locale, might as well add some more people. Just go in to get to the next price level, and basically everything between the breakpoint and the next price level is going to be free. So how do you do that? Okay, here's our pricing. 0 to 49, $1.49. 50 to 75 pounds is $1.25. Anything over 75 pounds is 99 cents a pound. So that basically means your breakpoints are 42 and 60 pounds. If you have a cart full of 43 pounds of stuff, it pays to just tack on another 7. Go find 7 pounds worth of stuff for yourself. Go find something that you threw back because it was too heavy, but it weighs 7 or 8 pounds. Throw it in your cart. You're basically getting it for free at that point. And then the next slide kind of covers how to calculate that. So basically, you're taking the minimum weight of the next tier, multiplied by that rate to get what that rate would be if you were at that particular level, then divide it by the cost of the previous rate. That gives you the breakpoint. So that tells you where it is. So if you have trouble figuring that, leave like a comment in the post for this show with your pricing, and I'll go back through and I'll calculate it for you and tell you where your breakpoints are. Are the bins worth it? That's the question you have to ask. First thing, I recommend going several times. Not everybody's bins are going to be worth it. Our bins here are great. Goodwill here is a massive operation. Goodwill has 30 plus stores, 5 or 6 bookstores, another 30 donation centers, several boutiques, and 2 outlets. So they have a ton of merchandise. They get way more they can process. And so eventually there's just gonna be a ton of stuff at the bins. And you need to figure out, well, first off, here, I can go all day long. It's there. Some places, I've seen some places where they're like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And if that's what you got as a regular job, well, then that's not going to work for you. But if they merchant, ours do. There's just, you drive around town here, there's Goodwill billboards everywhere. Please donate. They're like channeling Recondo now on a couple of their billboards. You know, hey, is your stuff not sparking joy? Come bring it to Goodwill. Chances are, no matter what, some good merchandise is going to come through. It's just a question of how much. And then, are they significantly cheaper than your other sources for similar merchandise? Here, just an average long sleeve shirt for men is going to be $6, $7. 10 ounces, it's going to cost me what, $1.10, $1.20 at the bins. So for the same price I'd pay at a regular store, I can get 5 or 6. And if only one of them sells, I'm still ahead of the game. Next. Store pulls versus raw product. This is going to be the big determination generally as to whether or not your bins are worth it. Store pulls are what most people have put on a rack, priced, sat there for 5 or 6 weeks, went through the week of the color tag, still didn't sell. They send it to the bins, gets piled in there. Raw product is stuff that never even made it to the store. For whatever reason, they went straight to the bins. In some locations, you'll never see raw product. Everything has been through the store, because a lot of places where they will take the donation at the store, they put it in the store, and if it doesn't sell, then it goes on. Here, we actually 2 outlet centers work as distribution.
Hey, Andrew.
Centers. Yeah.
You are cutting in and out. So here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you exit and refresher and come back in.
Okay.
And I'll razzle dazzle with a story while we're doing that. So Andrew reminded me when I was after season 1 of Thrift Hunters, I was down in Maryland with Greg Purdy and Pam McAllister, both members of the Thrifting board. And we were at a by the pound place that, as Andrew was just explaining, it was raw product. They were receiving so much donated goods in, they couldn't keep up with them. So it wasn't store pulls, it was the raw product. And they, my buddy Greg, this is where he lived. Pam and I were from out of town. He said, hey, watch, keep your eyes peeled on this. And so they were bringing out fresh, the big boxes, the big boxes. And so they'd bring them out in categories. And when the shoes came out, he said, be careful at the shoes, because all the Africans have taken over basically the shoe trade. And so kind of like what Andrew said, there was a different person on each side of the box, and they would dive in the box as soon as it hit the ground. And, one would pull up one good shoe of this and one good shoe of that. And they look across the box on, all right, I'll trade this one good shoe for that one good shoe. And it was crazy and impressive. And I was like, wow, that's too much for me. Plus, no one was tall enough. I would have been tall enough. No one was tall enough to lean into these giant boxes. So people would bring their own stools. Now, Andrew and I don't ever have to worry about that. There's no stools needed when we shop. All right, give me a little sound check there, Andrew. And there is no sound. All right, cool. All right. I'm letting her know I don't hear him. Okay, so now I don't hear you at all. All right, so maybe Andrew will see that, hopefully, and refresh. Or it'd be funny if he was talking the whole time. Yeah. So Linda, you would absolutely end up falling in the bins. Those, the regular bins, like kind of the ones that Andrew and I have been talking about, they're shallow bins on wheels. They push them out. But this was giant boxes. And I was like, people bring their own stools. And my buddy Greg's like, yeah, they bring their own stools. So, the funny thing was, so season 1 had already been out of Thrift Hunters, and my buddy Greg said, hey, Jay, come here. I want to show you the shoe thing. And I said, all right, I'll be right there. Now, I was walking past a bin, not of shoes, just other stuff, that had 4 or 5 or 6 people in it. And none of them had their feet on the ground. They were all kind of like dangling in there. And from inside the box, I heard, is that the Thrift Hunters guy? And this lady popped her head up like a groundhog out of his hole. She's like, "It is the Thrift Hunters guy." So she was trying to take a selfie with me. And of course, the other 5 or 6 people didn't know who I was, didn't give a shit about who I was. And because she was busy trying to take a selfie, they were pushing her out of the way. So yeah, you can't stop for selfies at the pound store. Hi, Andrew.
Hello. Am I better?
Yes. All right. Let's try back to store pulls and raw products.
Okay. So where did I start to cut that out? Okay. Yeah, basically you're looking at the difference between stuff that's been picked over at the stores, and this is the leftovers that either just aren't desirable or were way overpriced in the store, or do you get raw product which has never been in the store? If you were in a place that is a large city where they get a lot of donations and they just don't have the time or the personnel to process it, you'll get a lot of raw product through your bins. They have these massive machines that pick up 2 gaylords at a time and dump them into the bins. And so you get just like 16 batches of gaylords rolled out at one time that have never been touched by anybody at Goodwill to price or do anything. You're the first one to get it. $1.49 a pound, 99 cents a pound, whatever. That is, for most people, that's going to be the thing that is going to determine whether or not it is worth it for you. And the nice thing is, even though you may be getting a lot of store pulls, you can look at the tag that's on there and realize, maybe that was, actually, I'll show you. I got this today, and this is, I don't know if you can see that. There is a tag here. I go, oh, it's a boutique tag. Let me take a look at it. And then I look at it, and hey, it's a Pendleton. It's a very nice jacket that I got for $1.49 a pound. Will probably sell for $75 to $100. So yes, you want raw product, but there is still money to be made if they're bringing in store pulls. What you need? Sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right.
Big thing. What do you need? Bring a fully charged phone. Bins, just like every other Goodwill, for whatever reason, get crappy service, crappy reception, and that drains your battery faster. I recommend bringing a backup battery just in case if you're going to be there for any length of time. I have 2 phones, and after about 4 hours, will deplete them both. The other one, and it's the hotly debated thing, is gloves. Do you wear gloves? I personally don't, but you probably should. My recommendation is the first couple times you go, get some gloves. Go to the dollar store, get the like gardening gloves with like the vinyl on the front of them. Use those. Don't use them though. Use them mainly for like hard lines and things like that, where there might be glass or like a shard of metal or something like that, and protect you. For the most part, in soft lines, though, you want to kind of be able to grab. I'll see some people will run a glove on one hand and an open hand on the other, and they'll just make use of that. Whether you use gloves or not, bring hand sanitizer. Douse yourself with it once you get out. I also keep like baby wipes and stuff in the car, just to wipe off when I'm done. Water. You're going to get thirsty. You may not have a good water fountain. The one in the last building, the north bins we're in, the water fountain never worked well. They do now have a snack bar where they'll overcharge you for sodas and chips and stuff, but a water bottle is a good idea. And an open mind. You can't go to the bins expecting to find any specific thing, but you will find everything at the bins. Eventually, you'll see it at the bins, whether it's, $150 Hermes scarf, $100 Pendleton jacket, or a couple of toilets on a busy weekend. They're going to show up. The other thing I recommend: bring a friend. Do it as a team. You can have one person who picks stuff out of the bins, hands it off to the other person puts it in the cart, or one person works hard lines, one person works soft lines. Some of you may be looking for different things. If you have a friend who's a crafter, there's a lot of things crafters are going to love at the bins, especially like just weird fabrics that may be on a piece of clothing that's not necessarily desirable from a brand standpoint, but it's a cool looking piece of fabric. And then things to get from the bins once you get there. The first thing you need to get is a cart cover. The first thing I do, I get a cart, and then I go and I scan the place for just like the one thing, usually like a big sheet or a blanket or something that just stands out the most. And I use that to cover my cart with. Not necessarily just to cover it from other people looking at it and stuff. That's kind of it, but mainly to mark it because the place is huge and I may not remember exactly where I put my cart. So I want to have something that stands out so I can quickly go, oh, there's my cart over there. Another thing that works really well is pool noodles. You'll often find pool noodles at the bins, and at $1 a pound, they're substantially cheaper than they are at the dollar store because pool noodles are very light. Those stick up, and you can spot your cart very easily. A neutral sheet is something else you kind of want to keep an eye on or an eye out for as you're shopping, and we'll get into why a little later. And then bags are always good. Bags are good. I love to pick up just bags, specifically light bags. I will pull out. This is my first ever Toomey bag, except it's not a real Toomey bag. It's like the dust cover bag that goes over. And so the few things I got this day, I put in a Toomey bag, loaded them up. Didn't have to take the cart out. Walked out of my car, got that. Grocery bags, heavy duty grocery bags are great. Help you bag up, move on. And specifically, let's talk about the cart cover.
So Robert real quick wants to know, what's a Gaylord?
A Gaylord is like a pallet, except it's got a big, huge cardboard kind of fence around it. If you ever go to the grocery store and look at what they ship watermelons in, that's a Gaylord.
Yep.
It's a pallet, but pallet with capacity. The shot you have of the bins where they've got the deep bins, those aren't the traditional. Usually they're a much more shallow bin, but the deep bins like that, that's kind of what a Gaylord is. The Goodwill outlet in Waco is all Gaylords. And then the Goodwill outlet down in San Antonio, it's half like the blue bins and the other half is like Gaylords of literally, imagine a Gaylord full of VHS tapes for $200. And it's not, you don't get to buy one. You got to buy it. You got to take all these VHS off our hands for the low price of $200. Boom. So actually, when I was putting together this presentation, this was Friday night. I just stopped by the bins at like 9 o'clock at night, ran through, got a few things. I said, you know what? I need a shot of a cart cover. And so I'd actually passed by this LSU throw thing a couple times. And I said, oh, let me get that. And I'll use that as my demonstration. And this is good. I can see this. I can see LSU. I can see that Tiger. I can see that from wherever I'm at in the bins. There's my cart. If I need to run over, drop some stuff in there it is. The thing to point out about your cart cover is before you throw your cart cover back when you're done shopping, check to make sure it's not something you want to keep. I looked at this and I'm like, wait, it's an opposite on the back as it is the front. What's the tag say? What is it? It's a beater lag. It's my first beater lag. Randomly found at the bins because I needed a shot for this presentation. And so you never know.
Oh, yeah. That's a good find.
No, it's right here. It's right here. The fray or the follow-up. This kind of goes to just what is your level of involvement in how much you want to go and really get the really, really good fresh out of the bin stuff. If you've never been, basically they roll out the bins. A lot of places put like sheets over them to cover so you can't see what it is. Ours hasn't tried doing that in years. It just doesn't do any good. There's a yellow line at the end of one of the bins, and everybody lines up there, and they say, no running. They don't say go, they say no running, and that is your cue to go and kind of do that like Olympic speed walking thing. That's the fray. That is the fray. You will see it is just like locusts swarming around whatever locust eat. Just a swarm of people. Our bins are what, 8 long, so you will get about 5 to 6 people per bin just swarm on there, 2 sides. So you're looking at 40 on each side, 50. You're looking at 80 to 100 people every time. Just go, swarm, dig, pull, 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 pull. If that's not your style, you can just stroll along behind them, wait for everybody else to get through, pull up. That's honestly, that's mine. I do it. It's what I call the follow up. Just follow behind them, wait for them to do the chaos, and just that looks good, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good, that looks still that. I find so many things from bins that have already been picked over by 80 to 100 people. It's unreal. There's just so much stuff, and there's so many things where the people at the bins may not be looking for the same thing you are, and you have your knowledge of certain things, and you may come across something that's so esoteric you're the only person within 5 miles that knows what it is. You pick it up, you're good. Obviously, this beaterlack throw was in that bin probably for at least an hour before I even got there to find it, and so it had been looked over by a couple hundred people, and nobody thought it was worth anything.
Yeah, that's always crazy because, and that's kind of like what the Thrifting Board and the Secret Beach is about. And that's why we do these webinars, because we all have different knowledge. Like when I teach a class, I usually start in the t-shirt section, have the entire class go through the t-shirt section, and we talk about what they found and what was actually good to buy and what they should skip. And then I'll go back through if I got a few minutes, and I'll find like 3 or 4 or 5 good things. Now, here is 12 to 20 people I'm teaching, and they all missed this very rare Eddie Van Halen t-shirt. So, there's always good stuff. Just like on sale day, I waltzed in to find a gem at $5.45.
Yeah.
They've been doing 50% off since 9 a.m. Same with thing. So anytime you walk in with what your knowledge is, you will almost always find something good.
Actually, probably like the 10 best finds I've had at the Goodwill bins have been on bins that are technically stale. I found a $300 Indian motorcycle leather jacket one morning at like 10 o'clock. The bins had been there since 8 o'clock. I walked in 2 hours later, picked it up, boom. The main flaw with the jacket is it fits me perfectly, and I don't really want to sell it. I have found at least 3 pair of Allen Edmonds shoes in a shoe bin, and the shoes are like sought after, but mostly they're looking for Jordans. They're looking for lady shoes. They're not really necessarily looking for a size 12 men's Oxford. And so I will very often go through, and there's some nice dress shoes in there. Grab first, look up later. There will be times where there's merchandise coming out. Grab it. Whether you're in the fray or the follow-up, grab, take it back to your cart. Grab, take it back to your cart. Once things calm down and you've done a couple of sweeps of that and there's no more new merchandise coming out, then you sit down. I always go over to the furniture section, get a chair, sit it right next to a cart, and I'll take 1 cart full of stuff and an empty cart and start flopping it over. If I'm keeping it, it goes in this cart. If I'm not keeping it, I throw it back into a bin. You'll have time to look it up. This is not regular thrifting. You can't like walk up, put it off the shelf, take a picture for Instagram, and then look it up on 3 different sites. Now you got to toss it in the cart, do the lookup later. One man's trash is another man's treasure. The very first really cool score I remember finding was a pair of Merrill Chukka boots. Sold them for $70 very early on when I was doing this. And I watched someone toss them back into the bins. And you will see people, it's like, always say, oh, put it down. And they put it down. And I see so many things get thrown back. And very specifically, the bin set up here, they have a couple of bins in front of the checkout register. So while people are in line waiting to check out, they can go through their cars and decide, oh, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. So those bins there are basically like the putback rack next to the dressing rooms and Savers, where people have like found cool stuff but didn't fit them and they put it back. So look through those. Also look at wherever people are lined up with their carts, wherever people are doing their research and deciding whether or not they want to keep it on, I call it working the edges. It's the two edges of the bins in our store where people have their carts and they throw stuff back all day long. And so every so often I'll just walk up and down both edges and see what people have thrown back. And you'll find all kinds of stuff that people have decided for whatever reason, they didn't want to look it up. They didn't think it was worth it. You know, how many times have you said, don't look that up, you know, and it turns out to be something later. That's good. It's a good place to look. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. These are two examples of people who were like pros at this, and they are probably there from to well in the evening, and they will just load up their vehicle and take it wherever they take these things to sell them. Don't at least until you've gotten really good at this and you know you have a source. You know, they have probably a place to sell all those bicycles. They have a place to sell some of those furnitures. I guarantee you that van is chock full of clothes on the back, and that truck has got a ton of stuff in there that's like, they will probably spend maybe a few days selling that, and they'll be back and they'll load up again. So make sure you have a way to move and flip the stuff that you're getting. You're gonna be tempted because you're gonna go, oh, it's only $1 a pound. It's only $1.50 a pound, and you're gonna overdo it. Trust me, I've done it. It was like you get out there and you like your bill, you're, oh, it's $76. $76? How much? What did I do? You know? And you just get carried away thinking, oh, it's only a pound. It's a pound here. It's a pound here. Don't overdo it. Gradually learn how much you can, because you can only, you know, you've got to, unless you're selling at a flea market or someplace where you just set stuff out and tell people prices, you have to process. You have to research it. You have to clean some stuff up. You may have to wash a lot of the clothes you're getting into the bins. And then you got to photograph. You got a list. You got to do, you know, even if you're doing like, you know, Facebook Marketplace or something like that, where it's just a couple of quick photos and a short description, it still takes some processing time. So don't overdo it. Which leads us to what I call the cull. You need to cull the stuff you have. There's tons of stuff. There's always tons of stuff. And you're going to get a basket full of stuff, and you need to be brutal. You need to thin that basket. You need to make decisions. I mean, there's going to be some stuff where you're just going to go, yeah, there's no doubt I'm getting this. Today, the Pendleton jacket was the only thing. We spent $10. Got a few other things that are honestly, you know, a nice little return if we ever sell them. The Pendleton will sell. The Pendleton will make us our money and then some. So that's a no-brainer. Beyond that, you need to be real hard and fast and just, yeah, next slide. Throw most of it back. That's just, you know, whatever you wind up with before the decision-making process, you should throw at least half of it back. Think about the cost to prep it, to list it, and to store it. Do you have room to store it all? It's like, yeah, it might fit in your car today, but do you have room in your house to move it out of your car, or are you going to be driving around with it in your car for the next 3 weeks? And there's some people at the bins where you're like, from last week, there'll be fresh stuff next time. There will be. There's always going to be stuff. There is going to be a never-ending stream at the bins. Save weight. Save weight. Whatever you can do, you're paying by the pound, so you want to save weight. If you find an item that's battery powered, take the batteries out. There's a good chance the batteries don't work, and you're just paying for batteries by weight, which isn't good. If something is broken, that you know that, you know, if you've got like the bread machine and you know you can sell that paddle for $15, throw the bread machine back and just take the paddle. Don't pay for the whole thing. I've heard of people who find jeans where there's just a bunch of fraying on the end of the hems, and they will cut the legs off the jeans and just sell them as cutoffs. And now you've saved, what, 60% of the way of the jeans by cutting the legs off. I had a bag the other day that was tangled up in a bunch of stuff. And I could have like just picked the whole thing up and said, okay, the bag is worth it to pay for the other stuff. No, instead I just basically ripped all the other stuff that was tangled up with Get it out. Whatever you can do to cut weight, cut weight. Bag as you go is not a necessity, but it's something I like to do, especially when you're deciding what to, because you will make decisions the length of the time you're there. If you're only there for an hour, you're probably only going to do one cull. If you're there for several hours, you're going to have to go back again and again and again. And as you have certain things that you determine, I'm keeping this, bag it up. There are grocery bags all the time, heavy duty grocery bags. I find a lot of backpacks that are worth reselling. I found that Toomey bag. I use that, bag it up. I found an Osprey messenger bag 2 weeks ago. Stuff went into that. One thing to carry to the car. Always be listing. Earlier, I was talking about you need to get the cart cover in a neutral sheet. That's what this is. These are 2 items. This was a very slow Thursday. I found these 2 items and one small thing for myself. I was there about an hour and a half, and I decided, this is probably all I'm going to find. Let me call it a day. Before I did that, I threw the sheet on the ground, put these 2 items on there, and listed them on 5 platforms before I'd even paid for the items. Before I'm leaving the store, I have these both listed in 5 places.
You are an overachiever, sir.
2 days later, I sold that backpack. I got an offer on OfferUp to ship it to somebody, I think in Phoenix. Took the offer, boom, money back in my pocket. I was literally at the car wash, which Jason will probably find funny.
Oh, I did.
And so I paid for both of these items. I paid $3. After fees, I got $27 for the Osprey backpack, and I still have that denim vest that now I can say, you know what? I made my money back. I can sit and wait till I find somebody who's going to pay me at least $40, $45 for that vest. Maybe if I hadn't sold the backpack, I'll take 25, 30 on the vest, and I'll hold out for more on the backpack. But now I'm well ahead of the $3 I spent that day. Still got that Wrangler vest listed 5 places. Somebody's going to pay me for it. How can you ramp up the game? Think about how you can save time. Very specifically, like when I was talking about bringing a friend. If you have someone there who isn't necessarily a reseller, but they have, like I said, a crafter. Crafter is going to know good material. They can tell you, hey, this is a good material. You may not know the brand, but maybe you look it up and it's still a good thing. And then when there's not anything that they can find for their own use, they can be looking for things for you. The other thing you can do is pay people to work the bins for you. People find things, buy it from there. It's like, hey, I'll offer you $5 for that. They've made the money there. They don't have to worry about selling it up on eBay. Maybe you're getting it for yourself, but maybe you're getting it to resell. I know a couple people that do substantial business just sourcing from other people at the bins. Hey, let's do scores.
And then in little parentheses, duds.
Yeah.
Ooh, Vegas.
Las Vegas, Harley Davidson. This was, and this was on a follow-up. This had been sitting in the bin for a while. And it took a little while to sell. Sold on Posh. And I had dropped the price down to $40 and I'd raised it back up to 70 about 3 hours before it sold. So it's an 8-ounce t-shirt. So it cost me max 75 cents. I sold it for $70. Ralph Lauren selvage jeans. Normally used, these would be upwards of $100. But if you can see at the very top there, the jeans were worn with the leg rolled up a little bit, and they were worn completely through on one leg to the point where there's about a 3-inch hole in the leg of one and starting to be another hole in the other leg. And so whoever saw them the first 16 times thought, oh, there's a big hole in the leg of this. Who's going to want it? This is where the knowledge comes in. I see selvage. I go, they're going to be worth $1.49 a pound easy. Sold them for $50.
Nice.
Patagonia fleece vest. This is like my most liked thing ever on Poshmark. And it sold, I don't even think it lasted a week. It just got shared by all kinds of people. They went nuts for this thing. I'd love to find some more of these because they loved it. And it was a medium. And it was like, medium is going to take a while. If this was a little bit of a bigger size, it probably wouldn't have lasted 2 days. Phillip Rivers, you wouldn't think someone would want $25. Somebody on eBay paid me $25 for a Phillip Rivers jersey. This thing weighed, I think, 10 ounces. So what did it cost me? $1.10. You know, after fees, it's still $20. No brainer. The Walking Dead actually did not sell for $32, but I got this and 3 other Star Wars themed shirts. Lady came into Poshmark and bought all 4 of the XL Star Wars related shirts I had for a net to me of, it was $60. So she paid $15 each. So it was a net to me of $48. And for 4 t-shirts, I paid what? $4, $4 and a 48. Harley Davidson black hoodie. It's Harley Davidson. It's a hoodie. It's not all that complicated. It really is a fairly simple thing, but boom, $30. It cost me 3.
I want to find that Walking Dead in my size. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now as you're talking.
It's cool. Tommy Bahama new with tags. I can't believe this thing got picked over at the bins. I sold this Monday. I actually sold this Monday. I was doing some stuff for the show. And it's like, ping, you have an offer. I listed at 45 and I wasn't expecting to get half of that. And they're like, 33. I'm like, yeah, sold. Done. The sweater is a Brooks Brothers merino wool 2XL sweater at the bins. Nobody wanted it. I picked up, like, this Brooks Brothers merino wool, $48. I paid 2 or 3.
Is that a sideways picture in your listing?
Yes, it is. Just for you, Jason. I brought you a sideways picture. This is, and the thing is, honestly, this sale pissed me off so much. Because it wasn't just sideways pictures. There was about 8 things wrong with this listing once it sold. And that I like, and I was like, how did I sell this? I got sideways picture. There was a couple of things wrong with the listing that the buyer would have seen. And there's another couple of things that I were just on my end. I'm like, how did this even sell? But it did. It's a virgin wool jacket, Pendleton. You know, anything Pendleton is going to sell. It's either new and crisp or it's vintage. It's just, people love it. It's a brand that people love. $65. It's a little heavy, so I probably paid about $4.50 for it. Still brilliant. Patagonia, another brand people. And this shirt, this picture doesn't do it any justice. That is it's like this deep red and gold, and it was bright, and it's like, if it wasn't a Patagonia shirt, I would have used this in my cart cover because this thing stood out, and I just grab it. I'm like, that's a Patagonia Pearl Snap. Boom, $30. That took almost no time to sell either.
That's a cool shirt.
It really is. Duds. Holy crap. The first one really isn't necessarily dud. I bought it. I was like, this is cool. You know, there's somebody out there who like loved this Elvis song and thinks it's the funniest thing ever, and somebody will buy it, and someone did. And as you'll notice, it's a size XL, except it wasn't a lady's size XL. It was a kid's size XL. And so she was a little upset. So I had to give her money back. And I'm like, keep the shirt. keep the shirt, give it to a kid. I don't care, whatever. And the second one was a new with tags. There's a new with tags. I put bacon on my bacon. I thought somebody loves bacon and somebody is going to want this shirt. I sold this. I made an offer to Likers for $10 and free shipping. So it's a $3 fee and 40. So I made 53 cents on the shirt just to get it out of my inventory because I kept seeing it. It kept floating by my Poshmark closet. I'm like, God, I hate that shirt. I want to sell it. So like, I just kept making offers till somebody finally made me 53 cents on it. And the thing is, at 53 cents, I probably lost what? I only lost 50 cents on it. And this thing, you're getting stuff for so cheap as long as you can sell it, it's just, you really got to sell it low to not make money on it. Q&A.
All right, we do have a
People
bunch
will
of
have questions.
I was watching, and as always, Debbie, thank you very much for taking care of all of our questions. So Marianne wants to know, do you ever find that people take things out of your cart when you're not looking, or they take your cover? Has that ever happened?
I have never experienced that. And usually I try and get something garish for a cart cover. The LSU thing was really kind of a fluke. I get something that like obviously has been tossed aside 42 times because it's just garish. I'm not looking for stylish and necessarily colorful. I'm looking for something that's easy to spot, which is like the pool noodle. Nobody wants the pool noodles. I got 2 pool noodles today. You know, you stick that out of your cart and it's great. So it's I've never had anybody take anything out of my cart. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it does happen. But it's one of those things where, you know, I got no time to mess with other people's carts because I'm busy looking for stuff for myself.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it, and I've not put in nearly the time Andrew has. I've never seen it. Now, real quick, will you join us over here for a quick second? They're a special guest. So, one thing Andrew did mention, I think I was paying attention the whole time. The way the bins work a lot of times is they push out a fresh row of the bins, and you can't touch them until they say go. And so Stacy had never seen the bins in action, and she knew I bet them, she knew I filmed at them. So
yeah,
as the fresh bins are coming out, and they're tarped by the employees, and if you touch it, you look at it, you'll get yelled at the first time, you get thrown out the second time. And so here, step over here because this is where the mic is.
Yeah.
So Stacy, they see the 8 fresh bins come out in a row, and they pull the tarps off, and we all dive in. And I was the tallest person there by at least a foot, so I was able to come over the top of everybody. And Stacy stood at the back, kind of a little raised, and the look on her face was like, "What is going on?" And at the end, what was your thoughts at the end there?
I won't come back.
And true to her word, she's never been back.
For anyone from the Midwest, it reminded me of the lake. What is it? Lake Pymatuming?
Yeah, if you've ever been to Pymatuming in Pennsylvania,
or Stingray City,
where you feed the fish,
and they're just, I mean, the fish are probably 3 feet deep because
it's like that
fed. It's yeah. I just can't imagine that there's anything that important to buy to put myself through.
It's a swarm. It's a swarm, and the thing is, I will tell you that I bet a lot of people never go a second time. And I know people. There's just such of like this spooky aura about the bins. Like people who will gladly shop at Goodwill every day of the week won't go to the bins. I have a cousin who lives in Portland. She goes to Goodwill all the time. She won't go to the bins because apparently her friends talk about it like it's just this like black hole you never come back from. And you'll see those stories. You like people like, oh, the bins. I went to the bins, and you know, I was in there Sunday in the North Bins here, and it was the most crowded I'd ever seen it, and it was pretty crazy. And so yeah, it's not necessarily going to be your cup of tea, but I mean, like I said, you can do the follow up. You can stroll in and stay away from the crowds. Fresh bins are over there. You can go over there and just dig through. And I guarantee you, if you've got good bins, you'll still find stuff.
Jen says, how do you manage if you can't find a cart? And so I would assume, you know, even on the sale day,
you got to stock people in the parking lot. You got to stock people in the parking lot. I actually had to do that today and Sunday. They were out of carts. And the thing is, I personally, when I go, you know, I try and get 2 carts. I have one cart that like is the fresh stuff that is just straight out of the bins, and I really haven't done anything other than just the initial pull, and then I'll sort it into another cart, and the stuff in the second cart is the stuff that I'm probably going to keep. And so I'm taking up 2 carts, you know, and every other, and there's booksellers. You'll see the booksellers there because they're getting books for 20 cents a piece. And, you know, if they can flip those on Amazon for $6, $8, $50, they go out with like 4 or 5 carts at a time. And so, yeah, there's plenty of people, you know, no matter how big your bins are, if there's good, and that's a good sign. It's like, if you go there and they're out of carts, it's a good sign there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, no kidding. So another question was, you don't leave your covered carts in another section of the store, do you? Yeah, a lot of people leave them like way in the back, and they'll
Yeah.
vulture swarm it. They'll grab a bunch of shit. They'll go back to their cart, throw it under the tarp, come back. So yeah,
Yep.
usually they're parked on the perimeters, really. At least
Yep.
here.
There's a lot of like husband and wife teams at the bins here where the wife is in the fray and she's picking and picking and picking, and she's got like this load on her shoulder, and her husband just does this like flyby, grabs it off of her shoulder and takes it back to the cart.
I like it.
And then he'll do look up or he'll do start. And again, it's one of those things where, hey, bring a friend, work as a team. There's things you can do with another person there that you can't do when you're just there by yourself. But yeah, there's been times when I've like taken 2 carts and I'll put one on one side of the building and I'll put one on the other side of the building, and then just like drop off at whichever one's closest.
And Leslie and Jen kind of had a question that goes together. Jen's like, do you wash the stuff you get the bins? And Leslie said, I've been reading a lot about bed bugs and how people put their clothes in the dryer as soon as they get back from the bins. So what's your thoughts and how do you handle that?
I wash a good amount of what's from the bins. Obviously, if you're finding something that's new with tags, there's a tricky line there where you got to make sure that it's in new with tags condition. Otherwise, you're going to probably want to like snip the tags and wash it and just sell it as used. It's a good idea, especially if you walk in some of the bins like, it's got a weird smell to it because somebody had like a moldy shirt or something in there. One of the things that used to happen a lot is because they're doing it as kind of a processing from other stores, you'd have one of their big shipment containers that they would load clothes into might get like left outside, or it was loaded on the truck while it's raining or something, and so the stuff would get wet and then sits in the warehouse for a couple of days, and it's just it doesn't smell good. And usually the best thing to do is just walk past that bin, because everything in that bin is going to have an issue. But yeah, you're probably going to want to. I have never heard of anyone coming across bed bugs in the bins, but I'm sure it's a thing. I tend to not buy like plush toys. I think there's only a couple plush toys I've ever gotten from the bins, just kind of one of those things where it's like, the thing is, in a normal Goodwill, you don't know what that plush toy has been up against while they're processing at the back. You don't know what that, even though something's new with tags, it might have set up against, somebody's gym socks for 2 weeks. And it's the same at the bins. It's just, it's more rapid, and you have, and you'll have sometimes when, if they get like a bin or a Gaylord or something of merchandise that seems like this smells weird or whatever, they don't send it to the store, and every once in a while they'll put it out on the floor. Usually it goes straight to the trash. There's always going to be occasions where maybe they don't catch that, hey, this bin smells, reeks, whatever, but ours are pretty good about that, where they like, if it's just obviously something that seems to be like an entire batch of ruined merchandise, they won't even put it out in the bins.
Debbie said bed bugs are in expensive hotels too. Very true. Angela is more worried about boogers than bed bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And Marianne wants to know if they accept credit cards or is it cash only?
Like everything else, it's going to depend on where you're at, the organization is going through. Ours take all the credit cards. The only time you're going to have an issue is like if the credit card machine is down and they say that you can only take cash, but I would imagine they get that credit card machine fixed pretty quickly, because I think most people play with credit cards.
And I did. I'll kind of end on this. I did see someone mention the broken glass when we were filming that day at the one in Boston. It was one of them big plastic tubs, the kind that are usually at the front of Savers where you put the donations in. It was full of CDs, and I thought, all right, this could be a good scene. So they kind of set the camera up, and it was like a time lapse where I went through all the CDs. But luckily, I was paying attention and not just like randomly grabbing, because as I got to the bottom third, it's like someone took 4 windows, smashed them into the tub, broke them into shards, and then filled the CDs on top. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it would have been a nightmare had a kid or someone not really paying attention. Yeah. Went in there.
They separate the glassware out here. The glassware goes into its own bin. Occasionally something gets through, but generally they try and sort it to where all the glassware is in one bin. That it's the stuff over here. Broken glass isn't the issue, but you're gonna have. You're gonna have sharp edges on stuff. You're going to have, they put, lawn equipment in there, the hedge trimmers and things like that, you're going to have to watch out for. Honestly, I put my hand into a bin a couple of days ago, and I thought I got stabbed. And what it was is I put my hand in the bin, and there's like the tab of a zipper sticking up just right, so that it just jammed under my fingernail. So, it's a piece of clothing. You never expected, like, oh, you're gonna get injured. It is like, just the freak way that the zipper kind of landed. It landed there, and yeah, it hurt. And would gloves really have even hit that? Done anything that could have hurt just as bad with the gloves. So it's, you're like everything else. I've been in thrift stores where like some careless person was putting glass on a high shelf, and like some customer tries to pull it off and drops it on their head. Stuff happens, and they do. I mean, they don't want their insurance rates to go up.
No,
they're not looking to create things. They're trying, but yeah, it's keep your wits about you.
All right, so we'll end on the most important question. How about the bathrooms at the bins?
The bathrooms at our bins are pretty nice.
All right, wait, I'm sorry, that was not the end. I lied. Stacy actually has a question from the live studio audience here at the new Tiki Plug Music headquarters.
Okay, so I was watching this in hopes that you would convince me to try it again, and I was almost there until you started talking about the smells. So I may not. But my real question is, and you may have touched on this, but it sounds like shopping at the bins may take a little longer than at a place where things are kind of, organized. So build that into your time is valuable, and
definitely.
How do you figure out if it's really worth it to spend the extra time there versus going to, the regular?
You kind of get a feel for it, and very specifically, like I talked about, store pulls versus raw merchandise. There are days when everything coming out there is just store pulls, and it's stuff that's been picked over. And, once stuff goes to the color of the week, it goes 50% off. And so that is enough to bring things down. This Pendleton jacket was marked at $20. So even on half off, it still would have been $10. So you have to have that person that's going to fit that jacket and thinks that $10 is still a good deal come in during that week, or otherwise they're paying $20, or it winds up at the bins. And so it's a situation where there's always going to be good merchandise. I think honestly, if you've got good bins, go do it. There's a lot of boogeyman stories about it, but
are we gonna go to the bins this weekend, honey?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go during the week.
And what I'll do is I'll put my phone in my pocket and have a recording so they won't bust me. But we'll see how Stacy handles it. Time number 2.
I might just watch.
All right. Well, that was again, when we have such good and fun content, the hour goes so quick, and that was awesome. And we had, I think, the biggest live audience we've ever had. So I don't know what that says about Andrew and what that says about me. I'm very sad. So thank you, Andrew, very much. This is great. And I actually look forward to bin shopping with you. So if you get out here, if I get back out there, let's hit some bins together.
Will do.
All right, buddy. Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget Thrifty Business tomorrow night. We're talking Barbra Streisand, professional tennis, and eBay for 20 years. So tune in tomorrow night. And with that, we're out of here.